What just happened behind closed doors in Beijing could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East. China has made a move involving Israel that Washington did not see coming, and now the U.S. is scrambling to respond. Is this just diplomacy, or the beginning of a much bigger shift in global power? In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down what China is really doing, why Israel is caught in the middle, and why the U.S. reaction tells us this is much bigger than headlines suggest. Stay with me, because this changes more than you think. A Chinese professor just walked up to an Israeli military official at one of the world's most watched security forums, looked him dead in the eyes, and said something nobody expected to hear out loud. Your military should have shot the terrorists, not the children, the women. You shot the women and children, you lost the legitimacy to carry out any actions. The room was silent. The cameras kept rolling. And within hours, that video was everywhere. But here's what most people missed. This wasn't just one angry professor having a bad day. This was a carefully timed, strategically executed message, delivered in public, recorded on camera, designed to go viral. And once you understand the full picture of what's happening between China and Israel right now, the tension starts to look less like an outburst. It's a lot more like a declaration. Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than a viral video. But set the scene. September 18th, Shanghai, China's largest security firm, the Shangri-La of Chinese geopolitics, known as the Shang Forum, thousands of political, military, and academic figures from across the globe are gathered in one place. This is the kind of event where nations send their sharpest minds, their most polished diplomats, their most carefully chosen representatives. And standing in the room is Kelet Shoshin, the military attaché at Israel's embassy in Beijing. Facing him is Professor Yang Straibao, the dean of Tsinghua University's Institute of International Relations, and a random academic, not some fringe voice, dean of the most prestigious university in China, a man whose words carry enormous weight and whose views are widely understood to reflect broader Chinese government thinking. Professor Yan denied him to make small pot. You killed more than 70,000 civilians, Yan said directly. Shosha denied the fleance. Yan didn't flinch. You do not cite the facts. Facts are cited by the internet, your government. Your government has no legitimacy to decide what is fact. Let me think it for a second. Chinese academic from a major international security forum is telling an Israeli military official that his government lacks the legitimacy to define reality. On camera, with reporters in the room, with the whole world watching. And then Yan delivered the analogy that broke the internet. For robbers holding a bank, using the staff, customers' human shields. Please kill all the hostages just to get the robbers. Shoshin responded with what has become the standard Israeli defense. Israel tries to minimize civilian casualties. The war won't stop till Hamas releases the hostages. Yeah, look at him and called it exactly what he believed it was. Doesn't fight again. Too much. No one believes it, except few Israelis. The South China Morning Post confirmed the exchange. The Anadolu agency verified the votes. The Independent covered it. Modern Diplomacy analyzed it. Every major outlet reported it. Same conversation, same books, same extraordinary moment. Chinese professor publicly dismantling Israeli military officials' arguments at one of the world's most prestigious international forums. Now, China does not typically do this. China is famous for its circumspect diplomatic approach, social messaging, channel pressure, carefully worded statements that say everything while appearing to say nothing. Public commentations like this, especially at top-level forums, almost never happen, which means when they do happen, you need to ask why. Here's the thing about happen. In geopolitics, timing is never accidental. This confrontation didn't happen in a vacuum. Happened just days after Benjamin Netanyahu publicly accused China into organizing political blockade against Israel, posting on social media that China and PAR were funding a media campaign designed to isolate Israel globally. The Chinese embassy fired back immediately. All Netanyahu's remarks groundless, so they undermined China-Israel relations. And then, days later, prominent Chinese academic slanted an Israeli military representative. A songs-on forum in front of the entire world. It's not a coincidence, it's a response. It's China saying, loudly, publicly, and with cameras rolling, "We hear you," in Yahweh. And here's our answer. Timing goes even deeper than that. This confrontation happened while the United Nations was overwhelmingly endorsing a declaration outlining steps for the two-state solution, with Israel and the United States among only 10 nations voting against it. It happened while the UN Human Rights Council concluded that Israel was committing genocide in Gaza. Happened at the exact moment when international pressure on the Israeli government was reaching a fever pitch, and when China was actively positioning itself as a credible global mediator, the America could no longer claim to be. And here's the detail that makes the whole thing even more deliberate. The Chinese Defense Ministry confirmed that this year's Shanghai Forum would pay special attention to the 80th anniversary of the Allied victory in World War II, featuring sessions titled The Contemporary Significance of Victory in the Global Anti-Fascist War. Think about that carefully. China is hosting sessions about defeating fascism, while an Israeli military representative sits in the audience. The Chinese professor accuses Israel of killing 70,000 civilians. The message doesn't need to be spelled out. China made its position known without issuing a single official government state. That is a message. It's a message. And Professor Yan made sure to offer what China considers the solution. Go to the UN, read a two-state solution, establish Palestinian state. Once you have two states, you can work with the Palestinians together to fight against terrorism. Social hell is ground. The war continues because the Moss holds hostages. Beyond missed it entirely. Nobody believes it, except few realies. Now, here's where the story shifts from a diplomatic incident to something far more alarming. Because China isn't just criticizing Israel from a distance. China is inside Israel's most cleanse, has been for years. Over the past decade, Chinese state-owned companies quietly acquired stakes and operating rights, despite repeated warnings from American officials. Despite growing domestic security concerns inside Israel itself. Chinese state-owned SIPG, Shanghai International Port Group, operates the Bayport Terminal in Haifa, one of Israel's most strategically important ports. Former Shinda chief Rabad Argaman warned in strike in 2019. Warned that Chinese control of a major Israeli port poses direct national security risks. His warning was noted and then largely ignored. Dr. Harold Nashri, former founding official of Cyberdivision, was even more direct. Critical infrastructure should never be in the hands of a foreign power with interests contrary to ours. On the day of reckoning, they could disrupt operations, or worse, access sensitive information. Read that again. The former is really inelegant, if you will. The warning in China to disrupt operations and an Israeli fort would extract sensitive intelligence from Israeli infrastructure when the relationship reaches breaking point. To look where the relationship is right now. Chinese companies operate in Israeli court. Chinese academic publicly confronts the Israeli military. Chinese embassy and Israel friends an Israeli lawmaker Boaz Tokarowski when he visited Taiwan, warning he would shatter into pieces if he crossed China's one China policy. That is a diplomatic threat using violent imagery, directed at the member of the Israeli parliament, issued by the Chinese embassy operating on Israeli soil. Meanwhile, Israeli exports to China fell 28% in the first half of 2025. The economic relationship that Israel assumed would guarantee Chinese neutrality is collapsing, and the strategic ownership is created by that relationship are not. And on TikTok, a Chinese-owned platform, Dr. Menashri noted that for every pro-Israel video, there are 50 pro-Hamas ones. That's not an algorithm work. It's information work here. So what's really going on here? Let's zoom out and look at the full picture. China's stance toward Israel hardened dramatically after Hamas's October 7, 2023, attack and the ensuing war in Gaza. Beijing blocked a UN Security Council resolution condemning Hamas, accused Israel of collective punishment, doubled down on pro-Palestinian rhetoric consistently and unapologetically. The New York Times documented China, Russia, they ran coordinating propaganda campaigns supporting Hamas, including anti-Semitic and campaign narratives spread systematically online. This is not in tenant countries happening to share similar views. This is coordinated information warfare targeting Israeli and American legitimacy simultaneously. China's ties to Iran sit at the center of all of this. Iran is Beijing's strategic partner. China purchases Iranian oil despite international sanctions, provides technology, shares intelligence, coordinates messaging. When the Trump administration weighs military strikes against Iran, China supports Iran diplomatically. When American carriers deployed to the Middle East, China provides Iran with satellite intelligence showing American positions. When Israel needs international support for potential regional war, China is actively working to deny it. That is a comprehensive strategy. It's economics, military, diplomatics, informational, all coordinated, all advancing Chinese interests, all happening simultaneously, and Professor Yan's confrontation at the Shanghai Forum was one precisely calibrated tactic within that broader campaign designed to make the Israeli narrative illegitimate internationally, position China as the defender of international law, and challenge the American-Israeli alliance in front of a global audience. The viral video accomplished every single one of those objectives. Millions watched a Chinese academic dismantle and Israeli military officials' arguments. Millions heard Israel accused of killing 70,000 people. Millions saw an Israeli representative unable to defend those actions, convincingly on camera. That is an information warfare tool. That you're not in territory captured. A global recession permanently shifts. There's a brutal strategic reality that Israeli security planners are now confronting, and there are no easy answers. You cannot cut economic ties to China overnight when trade runs into the billions. You cannot remove Chinese companies from Fizzle when the contracts were signed years ago and the legal entanglements run deep. You cannot counter Chinese propaganda when the platforms fretting it is Chinese own. You cannot undo a decade of strategic decisions in a moment of crisis. Former Israeli officials across the board, former Shin Bet chiefs, former military intelligence heads, former senior security officials, all warned about this. All at Poshin, China's expanding marriage footprint masked deeper strategic objectives. All predicted that the relationship would deteriorate. Israel failed to account for Chinese interests, while simultaneously deepening China's access to critical systems. Those warnings were Itanian. To now Israel find itself in a position that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. Some power operates one of its most strategic ports. The same power supports its most dangerous regional adversary, Iran. The same power is coordinating propaganda against Israel internationally. Same power is just publicly humiliated an Israeli military representative at a major security forum. Make sure the whole world watch. Stimson Center, one of Washington's most respected nonpartisan policy research institutions, assessed in January that a more violence awaits the Middle East, 2026, so that the region is moving towards greater instability regardless of diplomatic ethics, that only decisive political change in Israel, Iran, or the United States could alter what they hold a bleak forecast. No decisive changes are happening. Netanyahu's government remains committed to its current policy. The Trump administration is backing Israel while flirting Iran. Iran is refusing American demands. China is operating Israeli ports, supporting Iranian allies, challenging Israeli legitimacy in public, coordinating against American-Israeli interests, all at the same time. Every condition for a regional catastrophe is converging simultaneously, and China is positioned perfectly to exploit American-Israeli difficulties while advancing its own strategic agenda. So let's come back to that moment, that room, confrontation. Professor Yan Shutong standing in front of El Chaoshin at the shop. Professor Yan Shutong standing in front of El Chaoshin at the Shanzan Forum and saying, on camera in front of the world, the government lacks legitimacy. Your narrative is propaganda. Your actions killed 70,000 people. Nobody believes you a few Israelis. That wasn't Angle. That wasn't one professor losing his composure. That was China's position, delivered through one of its most prominent academic voices, one of its most watched international platforms, recorded and distributed and spread across every major outlet from South China, Morning Post, to the Anadolu Agency, to the Independent, Modern Diplomacy. China chose sides, and it made that voice public, loudly, strategically, and with the entire world watching. The viral confrontation didn't just reveal a broken relationship, it revealed the consequence of a decade of decisions that prioritized economic opportunity over strategic security. They revealed vulnerabilities that cannot be quickly fixed. And it revealed that, can the new geopolitical landscape to be shaped right now, economic ties alone do not buy neutrality. Infrastructure access creates leverage, and leverage eventually gets used. That's the lesson of the Shangzan Forum. That's what the viral video actually showed. Beneath the drama, beneath the contemplation, beneath the extraordinary exchange that shocked the world. China isn't neutral anymore, and Israel and America are only beginning to understand what that means. If this video made you think differently about what's happened between China and Israel, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you believe is the most dangerous part of this story. If you're new here and you want analysis that goes beyond the headlines, you already know what to do. If you like this video, please subscribe to Gemm 242.